this week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable, can be described in 5 words. Don't fuck with the do. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, in this week's episode of JoJo, we learn again why you do not mess with Josuke's hair, because he's going to mess with your face. Another week, another bizarre episode of JoJo. This one was a lot of fun, as Koichi still has to continuously battle against Rohan Kishibe, the crazy artist with a penchant for manga. The good news is, in this week's episode, Koichi is not going to be alone. He is going to be joined by Okuyos and, of course, Josuke himself, who has a big confrontation with the crazy artist himself. The one thing I definitely learned from this episode is that Koichi has absolutely the worst frickin' luck in the world. This guy has got to be one of the most unlucky main anime characters that I have seen in a really, really long time. A lot of the best episodes of the series focuses on Koichi and his plight, and you really feel it in this week's episode, especially because Rohan's Heaven's Door is a really freaking powerful stand. It can do so many interesting things, and the fact that he can actually rip pages from people's bodies and write things down on them to sort of like suit his own needs is frankly kind of disturbing, and it goes really far, because if you guys remember in last week's episode, he ripped a page from Koichi's face and wrote down that Koichi could do nothing to harm Rohan, and that goes as far as to actually asking people for help. As long as it results in something bad happening to Rohan, Koichi can't do it. And throughout most of this episode, you really get to see that in action. Towards the beginning, Koichi is desperately clawing his way downstairs because he sees both Josuke and Okuyos outside. He opens up the door, he sees both of them, and suddenly he's back to normal. The stand actually kicks in at this point. It erases his memory so he doesn't realize what's going on. This way he won't divulge any information about Rohan. The good thing is, both Okuyos and Josuke notice that something's not quite right with Koichi, so Okuyos decides that he's going to climb up to the top of the house, bust through the window, and try to beat up Rohan. However, this ends up biting him in the ass, because right as he's about to punch him, he actually ends up getting transformed into a paper body as well, and starts to have the pages ripped from him as well. But what's even more creepier is that not only does he get turned into paper, but he also gets something written down in his personal files, which are, if Josuke tries to run away, Okuyos is going to commit suicide by immolation. He's going to light himself on fire. Rohan, you're a fucked up individual. And this leads to arguably the best scene of the week, where Josuke realizes that he has no choice but to confront Rohan, and he's hanging out behind this door. He doesn't want to listen to anything, he doesn't want to see anything, he doesn't want to risk getting hit by the Heaven's Door abilities, but he runs in there, completely blind, by the way, just closing his eyes and just sort of turning his senses off to everything so that he can concentrate on finding Rohan, and eventually when he does find him, man, does Josuke just wail on this dude. And you know what? Rohan would have been fine if he didn't mention Josuke's hair. Unfortunately, he didn't read all the files. Yes, it will get under his skin, but it'll also severely piss him off. Rohan decides to make fun of Josuke's hair, which sends him into this blind rage. So blind, in fact, that he isn't even affected by the Heaven's Door abilities. In the scene where Crazy Diamond comes out and punches through the manga page and hits Rohan in the face, is so damn satisfying, followed by him just wailing on him with a flurry of punches, sending him flying, and that's pretty much it for Rohan. He's officially been defeated at this point, and effectively turned into something of a joke villain with some really creepy and creative abilities. However, there is still one more crucial scene of this episode, and that's where we get to learn the origins of Josuke's hair. At some point in the past, when Josuke was just a little child, during the time period where Jotaro and his team were going to Egypt to destroy Dio, he was really sick, and his mother was trying to take him to the hospital, and they got caught in the middle of a blizzard. And then suddenly, to help them out, is this mysterious figure who happens to look almost identical to the present timeline Josuke, and having the same exact haircut as him. He actually ends up pushing their car out of the snow, they see him go away into the distance, but Josuke thought this guy was so awesome that to honor him, he decides to have the same haircut as him, the classic badass pompadour. Now this scene is really strange, because when I was watching it for the first time, I'm like, why does that guy just look so much like Josuke. It's not like he just has the same haircut or anything. This guy literally looks like Josuke has traveled from the future, gone back to the past to help out his younger self. Is that what's really going on here? Or are we having some sort of weird instance of time travel? I mean, we know that Crazy Diamond can reverse certain things and repair certain things, but maybe its abilities go even farther than we realize. Either that or I'm overthinking this too much and it's just a random guy who kind of looks like Josuke. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Another really fun episode of the series, which again made me really appreciate how creative this one was, because a lot of the times in the JoJo series they can just create stands that just do a lot of punching things, but whenever they do something that's like super creative, like with the Heaven's Door, it's always really surprising, especially because it has so many different abilities, not just being able to take pages from people's body, but being able to manipulate those in certain ways is just really damned impressive. Not to mention the scene at the beginning of the episode where he takes inspiration quite literally from Koichi's body and starts to draw out this manga scene where basically his hand kind of just moves on its own and just brings the art to life. It's pretty damned awesome. I really like that. But the real star of this episode definitely has to be Josuke towards the end when he decided to charge against Rohan. Even after having like shrapnel thrown into his face and everything, he doesn't even wince. But the minute his hair gets mentioned, he just flies into this rage, which is really satisfying and one that really just can't be quelled. Even after Rohan is defeated, Josuke is still pretty damn pissed off about his hair being made fun of. He's very sensitive about the subject, and a lot of that does have to do with that brand new flashback that we got in this episode, which I'm wondering if that's going to have any relevance later on in the future, like if we're actually going to end up seeing this character again, or if they're going to try to go back to that, or if that's really all we're going to hear from that story. All I know is I really enjoyed that. Another cool thing about this episode, of course, is that there's a brand new intro! That's right, a brand new intro which is very different from the first one, which was very high energy, super poppy, kind of fun. This one's a little more hardcore, a little more rocking, and what I love about it too is it also seems like it's going to get a little more serious, like we might even get our first true major villain of the series. That's not to say that Akira Otoishi was not a true villain, he was just kind of goofy in some senses. What I really love about the intro too is it kind of gives me that Stardust Crusaders feel, with a team finally coming together, going up against some sort of greater evil. And we also get to see there's going to be the return of many of the classic characters from the series, not to mention it also looks like Rohan Kishibe is going to be playing a part later on in the story, leading me to believe that he's probably going to end up being some sort of ally, kind of very similar to what we see from like Kobayashi or maybe even Hazamada, just these side characters that they've met in the past who might actually be very useful to them in the future. And I can't wait to see what Rohan's abilities are going to be used for later on in the series, especially considering what he is truly capable of, and with combination of all the other crazy stand abilities. All I know is the frickin' intro is awesome. There's also some brand new stuff in the ending as well. It's still the same song, which I'm completely okay with. I love the Savage Garden song, I Want You, but they add a lot more imagery to it, more new characters show up, like Joseph Joestar, Akira Otoishi, and a few other little visual nods are also sprinkled out throughout the brand new ending, just adding again more life to an already pretty kick-ass anime ending. So this right here was just a satisfying episode, a very simple one, but one that I really enjoyed. Josuke was awesome, Okuyos was really cool, and just extremely funny his reactions to seeing the Heaven's Door ability, and Koichi and Okuyos basically playing the role of commentators this week also made this episode kind of funny. But it's really going to be defined by that scene with Josuke just wailing on Rohan. That was really satisfying. So, a fantastic episode of JoJo. You guys should definitely check it out. I'm going to give this week's episode right here a 5 out of 5. That's right. I just really got a lot of enjoyment out of this episode. I had no complaints from it. I found myself laughing a lot. I loved the action scenes, and I really liked that flashback, getting to learn about the origins of Josuke's hair. So this was a pretty damn good episode that any JoJo fan should check out. The new intro's awesome, the brand new imagery, and the ending is great. Just a solid episode overall. So check it out, JoJo fans. But if any of you did watch this week's episode, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching this review. If you guys want to help support Super Kami Guru 9000, you can do that by subscribing to the channel, commenting on the video, sharing it with your friends. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!